Remembering our angel, Brittany Nicole Dillard of the Plain and Simple podcast. Continue to watch over us. We miss you. We'll never forget you.
What's up, Bree? What's up, Bree?
Hey! Look at Mark, y'all! Oh my
Shut
God!
it up.
Happy Mother's Day to me.
Warning.
You are now tuned in to 7 Mile Radio. 7 Mile Radio.
Peace. Welcome to the Revolutionary Wealth Builders channel on 7 Mile Radio. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us. What we're gonna do today is we're going to give you guys some real powerful information as to how this show is going to work and how this show is going to serve the people. And we're going to start to talk about the format of the show and all the things that you will be able to benefit from by tuning in to it with us every Thursday at 11 a.m. I'm Emmett. I'm going to be your host every week on Thursdays at 11 a.m. And I first want to say I appreciate the good people over at 7 Mile Radio and my good brother that supports us and produces this for us, Brother Mark.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, brother. As I explained to you many times before, man, people like you who has information such as you do is very important to this platform. It's very valuable to the people, and that makes it important to the platform because it's not about all about entertainment all of the time and having fun with broadcasts like this, especially when you've accumulated the type of following that we have here. You know what I mean? So it's about informing the people about things that they need to know about, you know what I'm saying, that we can help build our community with. You know what I mean? And I believe that you are a brother that has a lot of that type of valuable information that our people need to know about. So with that being said, you know, it's my pleasure to have you here, part of the platform, to add you to the 7 Mile Radio family. And I look forward to the conversations that you have, you know what I mean, and the guests and all of the information that you bring to the airwaves.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. So let's get right into it. So this is an interesting conversation because I actually had to develop a definition, a working definition, and actually trademark it as it relates to revolutionary wealth building. And
I was going to ask you about that too, because as I see on I guess any document that you've sent to me, revolutionary wealth builders always have the C next to it as to say copywritten. You know what I mean? So explain a little bit why you did that.
well, because words are powerful and they are important, and we
Slide a little bit to your right so they can see them.
Oh, okay. So words are powerful, and when you put together a group of words to create something that is new, that it becomes a valuable way of communicating with people. And once you determine that way of communicating with people has a value, you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can monetize it. You can stop other people from monetizing it, and then you can lend it to people when they need it to use it for what they want to use it for. So by taking possession of a group or a collection of words or ideas or photos, and by trademarking and copywriting things, you put yourself in a position to turn it into what we call intellectual property. And intellectual property is essentially something that comes from your mind, that it belongs to you, and it came from your mind. And so oftentimes people don't realize that their intellectual property can be monetized, or it can be lent out to people. It can be used for other things, or you can just make sure that you continue to have control over it so someone else can't misuse it.
Right.
And those things are very important. And the definition of revolutionary wealth builders, and we're going to get into the detailed definition, but the most important part of understanding revolutionary wealth building is that because a lot of people in our revolutionary community believe that it is oxymoronic to be a revolutionary and be a wealth builder. But in order to even have a discussion about being a revolutionary wealth builder, you have to understand what we define as wealth first, because most people define wealth as money and paper dollars and cash.
Right.
But wealth is a myriad of things. And so when I use the term wealth moving forward for every single show, just know and understand that it encompasses all of the things that I'm going to run off right now. Your health is wealth. Your family is wealth. Your relationships with people are wealth. There is nothing more important than our relationships with each other, and that's wealth. It is a valuable commodity, and there you cannot purchase it with anything, and that's wealth.
Right.
Of course, there is tangible wealth. Tangible wealth for me is something that you own it, you control it, and you can pass it down to the next generation. And so that is the working definition of wealth, encompassed with all of these other things that are intangible, that are just as important as tangible wealth, but you can't really see them and touch them all the time. We can't see and touch our health. We can't see and touch our relationships, but we can feel them and we know that they are there.
We know they're valuable.
These things are wealth. Some of the other tangible things that are wealth, when you start talking about owning, controlling, and passing down things, are like land. If you have land that can produce food, you will eat for the rest of your life. See, when revolutionaries have this misconception about what we describe as wealth, that's when they move into this position where they want to kind of come at us for making wealth an important portion of our conversation. And so for me, it's important for us to define what wealth actually is. And so growing food from the ground, the food becomes the wealth, because without food, we can't survive. We can't function, right? And so what we do now is we rely on other institutions, other companies, and other corporations to feed us every single day. Even though we may go earn the money to go to the grocery store to buy the food, we essentially need someone else to grow it, someone else to produce it, someone else to package it, and then someone to put it on the shelves so we can go grab it and pay for it. We have to master that process ourselves. That is wealth. To master the process of growing, farming, and gardening and being able to provide food for your family eliminates a lot of the other issues and challenges that we deal with in life. You don't have to wait on a check to feed your family if you're growing your own food. You really don't have to go to work for somebody else. If you are growing your own food, you can go to work for yourself in your own garden, because our number one priority is to feed ourselves. That's on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Water, food and water are number one before anything else. And so crop producing land is wealth. Real estate is wealth because it houses and shelves and protects your children, amongst other things that we're going to talk about on other days. And so I'm going to leave the wealth conversation right there. But just know that wealth is you own it, you control it, and you can pass it down when you're talking about the tangible. And then we cannot forget the intangible wealth. The fishing rods, being able to fish, to be able to gather and hunt for food for our families. That knowledge is wealth as well. So all of those things are knowledge. I mean, all of those things are wealth, including the knowledge to acquire those things. And so this show will be completely dedicated to conversations around the Black family and Black economics. There is no way to avoid having to live in America because we are here. And so we can be for or against capitalism, and we're going to talk a little bit about capitalism today. But no matter what we are for or against in America, without building the institutions to sustain our ideological positions, we have to dance to the beat of the drum in America to some degree. Not all the time, not with everything, but with some things it is unavoidable. And that's just the world that we live in. You have to buy their gas to get from A to B if you own a car. Most people have to pay on their loans because they had to borrow some money at some point. Even our most revolutionary minds have to have a relationship with America and America's capitalism, no matter how against it they may appear to be. Right. They are doing, we maybe have less than 0.3% of our total revolutionary population that is completely off the grid and detached from American capitalism. Mm-hmm. So that means 99.7% of all of our revolutionary minds have to have a relationship with capitalism, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. So we must identify what we want to detach from, what we want to divorce, and we have to learn how to build the institutions to support our ideological position of being anti-capitalism, if that's our position.
And you kind of somewhat answered the question that aroused in my mind as you was talking, because, that's often the solution that people speak of when we talk about separating ourselves from the system, right? That's to solve it. We'll never be treated as equal. This game has been designed with the rules against us, so the machine is operating exactly the way it's supposed to operate when the injustices that happen to us happen, right?
Absolutely.
So people say that the solution to that is to separate from the system, but we can't separate from it because we're too dependent on it, right? And so if we are so dependent on it, do you feel like it is possible? But like I said, you kind of answered the question before I answered it. Do you feel like it's possible? And I guess the how is possible would be in the blueprint of the revolutionary black wealth building system that you putting together, that you instructed.
Absolutely. So the way that I see it is like this. So for me, well, let me do this. I'm gonna read the working definition for revolutionary wealth builders real quick, and then I'm going to start to discuss it from a version that everybody can identify with. So revolutionary wealth building is the process by which individuals or groups position themselves to articulate accumulate tangible wealth using strategies specifically designed to neutralize the oppressive instruments of systemic and institutional racism and elitism. And why is that important? Why do I use the term neutralize? Because in order to beat it, we have to build systems. We would have to build systems, but that's a part of it. But to neutralize it would be, an example of that is for me to do business with 7 Mile Radio, right, for me to promote black businesses on Revolutionary Wealth Builders podcast every Thursday at 11 a.m. Right. Make sure you guys tune in. That's how you neutralize racism and elitism and what some people quote unquote call white supremacy, which I don't use that term anymore because there is no that's
confirming that it exists or that it's a real thing.
Exactly.
It's not, right.
Exactly. Only thing that is supreme is the supreme being, the creator, the most high. And then our relationship and spiritual relationships with each other and with the most high. That's what's supreme. So all those other things are just a fallacy that we sometimes typically buy into. But that the concept of revolutionary wealth building, we're spending money with black businesses, and then those black businesses are spending money with black businesses, and everybody talks about how the black dollar only bounces around in the community once or twice. Yeah. Revolutionary wealth building is ensuring that happens 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Right. Revolutionary wealth building is me deliberately going to 313 buying an outfit. Revolutionary wealth building to help is nothing wrong with helping someone else get rich. It's going to it's ordering cakes from J. Romel's Cakery. It's ordering jogging suits from Hunter Inc. It's ordering a hat from Up by 30, supporting black business. And then they in turn take that money and invest with other black businesses. I'm gonna make it real simple for everybody who's listening right now. If I pay my daughter to watch my son $200 a week for daycare or $300 a week for daycare, right, I can give her that $300 a week. And let's say I pay an outside entity like Child's Play, some place in Bloomfield Hill, $300 a week. If I needed to borrow $100, I can't go to Child's Play and go borrow $100, but I could go right back to my daughter and borrow $100, whom I pay to watch my child every single week, $300. That's how you insulate yourself, and that's what revolutionary wealth building is. It's putting your people on and investing in each other so that you can rely on one another when the need arises. If I support your business and get your business wealthy, when it is time to expand and my brother comes home from prison, you can give my brother a job because I've been supporting your business. This is how other cultures have been doing it since the word go. And this is something that I won't say that we don't understand. We understand it, but we are not exercise it. We do, but just not to the magnitude in which we should. We need to. Yeah, and that's all I will say on that. And we just have more work to do, and I'm okay with that. And so neutralizing, we don't even have to complain about what other people do to us if we take care of ourselves. We can insulate ourselves from the majority of the challenges.
We're so conditioned, right, to be dependent on this system that a lot of the cries for help involve hey, can you come and do this for me? We need aid. Come and do this for me, when we have the resources, the talents, the skills, and all of that to produce the things that we need on our own. We just don't have the institutions to set up. We don't have the companies. We don't produce any of the things that we need. We so dependent on everybody else that has it.
Absolutely. And so, which brings me into my next portion of the discussion, that in order to completely eliminate what we term to be racism, elitism, cronyism, and all of these other things, we have to build our own systems. And I'm going to discuss the systems that we need to build for our own children and our own families. And this won't be difficult. School system. You must educate your own children in the ways in which you want them to move. When you educate your own children, you create the engineers, you create the carpenters, you create the builders, you create the doctors, and so thus you benefit from their knowledge. And when you grow the children in the ways in which how they will serve their people, they will never stray from that.
Right.
And so that is why it's important to educate your children, and even from grade school, and build systems. How can we do that? Real quick. You build a school system building by building, curriculum by curriculum, church by church. Like I said before, there is anywhere between 506 and 830 churches in the Metro Detroit area. Baptist, Pentecostal, AME, African Methodist, Episcopal, all of these types of churches, there's anywhere between 500 to 800 of them. And the reason why this number fluctuates is because we have so many small storefront churches that a lot of people are not aware of. But these churches that are not being used during the week can also make as school buildings every single day, Monday through Friday, with church being held on Saturday and with Bible study being held on Wednesdays. When the church understands its true role and responsibility in the revolutionary movement of the people will become stronger, because the black church is one of the strongest institutions in the black community. They have to do more work as it relates to providing shelter for the housing of educating children, the retired teachers, all the teachers who work for DPS, all the teachers who work for the charter school would need to walk away from those jobs and teach and educate our children. And we as parents must be responsible for compensating them and paying them to educate our children. And it's really that simple. That's how you build a school system. Medical system. You build a medical system by, one, understanding the importance of investing in and educating kids in the ways of biology and chemistry. And when you begin to do that, you'll create children who will start to travel down the road of understanding what medicine looks like. You have to invest in your naturopath. You have to invest in your holistic practitioners, and you have to get healthy with the food and the farming. Now that the food system issue, our food system issue has a strong relationship with our medical system issue, our health system issue, because the food is where the health really lies. The food is the real medicine. And it simplifies living by eating correctly and growing your own food, not eating food in packages, not drinking a lot of pop, not eating food that doesn't come from the ground, and staying away from too many dead animals. Now, I do understand that we have our weaknesses when it comes to certain foods and seasonings, but it's about doing things in moderation. And that's all that is. But when you start to grow your own food and you start to build gardens and things like that, your healthcare system becomes less strained, because people will live longer and people will use the food as their medicine. Also, African herbalism, being an herbalist and growing the herbs and the medicines that you need to help people get healthy. Though these are the things that you do to create a new healthcare system. You follow what I'm saying? Right. And so when we talk about systems, people will think about this lofty expectation or something that is unattainable, when I'm talking about the bare basics, building from the bare basics of building blocks of building systems. And it is absolutely doable, and it is something that we must do. And our own political system. If you want to have a relationship with America's political system, we must aggregate our votes. And if there are 650,000 people in the city of Detroit, and 400,000 of them are of voting age, all 400,000 of them should be voting one way. But we know that the challenge truly is most people are self-motivated, and most people really are out for self and out for them and theirs. And that's always going to be an impediment to any type of growth. But that is neither here nor there today. But in order to have a strong political system, you have to aggregate the votes with one ideology. And even when you disagree behind closed doors, people have to buy your votes, they have to deliver, and you put your people in office, which goes back to the education piece, because you're training your kids to be politicians, to fight in that arena for them, and you put them there using your system.
And yeah, you have a way of answering some of the questions. Like you talk about things, and then I have a question in my mind, and you'll get to the answer before I even have a chance to answer it. Because a lot of people feel like the voting system don't work, right? We know a lot of people don't believe in voting, and some people will go as far to say that to participate in the voting is almost just a confirmation that you're giving them that you believe in this system that doesn't work. So what would you say to the people as far as voting that don't believe in voting being a plausible tool to change the climate of what's going on in the community?
Well, I'm gonna say this: voting there are different levels of voting and different levels of interaction with politics. At the highest level of politics, at the federal and national level, where you're talking about the executive branch, the judicial branch, and then the legislative branch. When you talk about those three branches of government, those three branches of government are completely and unequivocally bought, sold, and owned by capitalism. And there is absolutely nothing the average citizen can do to change the outcome and climate of elections at that level. That's the bottom line. And anybody who tells me different, I'll give you a quote by Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin said that the average citizen voting is simply the same as a sheep going to have lunch with the Democratic wolf and the Republican wolf and sitting down and determining what's for dinner, what's for lunch. The sheep is for lunch. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so these two wolves are going to sit down and determine what's for lunch. You thinking that you're going to come to the table and partake in that conversation and not be lunch, you a damn fool. And so when people believe that system works, that's their biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge of people in America, that they believe that they actually are voting for something, when the Electoral College is actually a controlled mechanism that really does not involve the popular vote or the individual vote.
Right.
And when people understand that, they need to grow up in that space. Now, what I will do is say, and that's even at the state level as well. Oh, excuse me, my bad. Yep. And so that's even at the state level. So now at the local level, that's where you can influence politics. You can influence politics at the local level. And then when you do that, then you can have a strong lobbying group of politicians that are really for the people, fighting for the people, similar to a Coleman Young at the higher levels of politics, i.e., Wayne County Commissioner, beefing with the Wayne County Commissioner, beefing with the governors of the state and the governor of the state and things like that. But at the local level is where you can impact change. But you'll never see a politician who wanted to impact change in America that was able to impact change while they were in office. The Jimmy Carters of the world couldn't create a Habitat for Humanity until he left office. These things they will never allow you to do that
while you're in that
position. And so the joke that is continuously played on us is they continue to feed us these ideological symbols
of
like
hope.
These black politicians that hold high office that absolutely do nothing. They absolutely do nothing for the people. And I mean, they look good, and I won't say their names. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Having a black face in a high place allows children to see something other than what they typically see every day on TV. And it's very important that we understand that symbolism is very important. But that is the extent of that. That is the extent to which I will give credit to it. The symbolism that it provides for the unknowing young person to believe that they are more than what they see on a newscast. So to see a black man on TV making decisions is a powerful message to children. And to see a black woman on TV is a powerful message to children. But that's the extent of it to me.
But doesn't that like kind of feed into the illusion of inclusion? You know what I mean? And give you a false hope or a false narrative that it is a possibility that this person is someone who could be a symbol or could be a change in the narrative, or I was going to say symbol of change, but isn't it give a false illusion that this person could be something that they end up not being? Like you said, these people that look like us in office, but then they end up not doing anything for us. So,
well, no, you make a good point. And so where I'm coming from this perspective, typically when our children watch TV, they see black criminals. They see.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
They'll turn on the news, and the L. George's Coney Island was robbed today at gunpoint by a black male about 5'11", 180 pounds.
He was saturated with that image.
He was last seen running west on East McNichols. And so essentially they don't realize that they are being programmed and trained to even see themselves and the people that they love as people who are bear watching and a threat. And so I'm saying from a subconscious perspective, I'm not talking about on the surface. I'm talking about from a subconscious perspective, they are seeing something different, and that's it. And you're right. It is important for us to get them to understand. Don't have the expectation that this is going to be by and large the way the world works, because this is what we call a talented tenth, a small percentage, and he or she is in this position for a reason. But it just gives them a break psychologically from seeing all of this foolishness that leads them to believe that we are only pimps, prostitutes, robbers, maybe a police officer, maybe a handyman on TV all the time. And so just a psychological break on the subconscious. That's kind of what I was speaking to.
Yeah, and
but I do agree with it.
And that's actually a beautiful thing, you know what I mean, that we even have that. You know what I mean, to pull from as far as the people that are in those positions. You know what I mean. So that's a good way of looking at it. You know what I mean. To give them the motivation that they can be something other than what they see the majority of on the news and on the TV shows and music videos. You can be something other than that.
Absolutely.
So if that's the only silver lining, then that's what it is.
Exactly, which ties into my next point: media. 7 Mile Radio is a medium that communicates information to the people. And we have to control the narrative. So media is a system, whether it be visual, audio, or print. These are systems. And the people who control the narrative, control these systems, control the narrative in which what we learn. Because you control this system, we control the narrative on how we educate our people. It is not by mistake that Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. It is not by mistake that Elon Musk bought Twitter. Because the Washington Post, even electronically, is a powerful platform to communicate information. So now Jeff Bezos can control the narrative of Amazon. He can control the narrative of his counterparts, of his colleagues. He can control the narrative of white capitalism in America. So can Elon Musk. And so they understand the importance of owning media. They understand that system. You understand the importance of owning media. And so now I'm coming into the understanding of owning media. And when you own media, you own the language, you own the communication, you own the narrative, and you can educate your people. These systems are the systems that we must own. All of these things are wealth as well. And so it's important for people to understand how we define wealth. So when we talk about wealth on this show and you didn't see show number 1, you may be lost as to what we describe and define as wealth. And you may assume that we are talking or speaking from a capitalistic perspective.
Exactly. And it's very interesting to me that we're having this conversation specifically about the institutions that we need in our community, because this is one of the exact same conversations that I had with the likes of Brother Dick Gregory. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Kaba, Dr. Umar Johnson, and all of these brothers, including yourself, have run down the same 5 institutions that we need as people to build. I mean, and that's part of the reason why, I do what I do nowadays with the platform, as far as being more so talk show based and to get out information that's needed to the people, more so than pushing the entertainment side of things, because I see the power, like you said, in media, and the need in information amongst our community because how tainted it is from the institutions that we have that are the mainstream right now. We need our own vessels of information. We need our own banks. We need our own schools. We need our own hospitals.
Yep.
Right. We need our own things that we can sustain our community with. What you gonna say?
So let's talk about this for a second. See, you're doing your job.
Right.
You're not a farmer. You're doing your job
Everybody.
because you own your media and you own your institution. This is an institution. So, for example, my wife, Dr. Carla Mitchell, is doing her job. She owns her holistic health practice. She brick and mortar and otherwise. She owns it. She provides health care for the people. Brother Marcus Klein out of Chicago owns his educational institution. These are these people so for me, when I look at these things, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All you have to do is duplicate the process, train under these people, learn what they are doing, and duplicate
And
this
grow those institutions, grow the systems that you already have in place.
I've been to Chicago and visited Marcus Klein schools. He has a phenomenal system of education that is destroying any private schools and their practices and curriculums around the world. I've watched his children test. I've watched his children do magnificent things. I've watched his children give me the root words of 100 different examples of words from 100 different Latin root words on the spot in 5 minutes standing in front of me. We are talking about geniuses are being created. We're not talking about dirt floor buildings where they're struggling for resources. We're talking about full-fledged school systems that are being built that are educating children to compete in a global economy. You feel me? And when we talk about Dr. Carla Mitchell's practice, we're talking about a full service, holistic health practice that provides people with an all-inclusive, comprehensive way of dealing with and managing their own health. When we talk about 7 Mile Radio, we're talking about over 20 different podcasts providing a platform for over 100,000 listeners. If 5 people do what you guys are doing, you just impacted 5 million lives in some way, shape, or form, whether they're learning, listening, or being motivated. You see, it does not take long and it does not take much. It just takes the doing.
Yeah, and consistency. You know what I mean? Like I tell the people on the podcast network, nobody's going to recognize us or pay us or respect us or do things that they don't see us to be doing consistently or doing like I said, consistently on a regular basis. So you apply that to everything else, you won't get the results that we need unless you are consistently doing whatever it is that we know we need to do systematically as a group, like as a unit, to produce the results.
Absolutely.
And we need to apply that to every institution that we know that we need, whether it be media, whether it be the hospitals, the schooling, the banking. Like, we need to create these institutions, these systems, and pattern ourselves after what we know is going to work for ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this is a good, right now, we could close out this segment right here because I think the people getting a clear understanding of what we'll be discussing here on Revolutionary Wealth Buildings on 7 Mile Radio every Thursday at 11 a.m. But also, I think that, well, let me say this. Know that everything that we talk about may not necessarily be about wealth building and black economics, but it will have a relationship to it. And sometimes we're going to talk about relationships. Sometimes we're going to talk about education. Sometimes we're going to talk about some things sometimes we're going to talk about the newest, hottest topic in print media or in whatever's trending. And we want to talk about how that impacts our lives, how it impacts our abilities to...
As it relates to wealth building.
Exactly, and being able to take care of our families.
But then initially, all of the things that you spoke on, are, revolved around wealth building, right? Because when you explained it in the beginning, you opened and broadened my perspective on it, even though I've read it. It's just hearing you explain it more in depth, it gives you a better a vision of what it is, right? And then when you talk about, we're going to be speaking on relationships, relationships or all of that. You just said that our relationships with our business relationships, or all of that. That's wealth. You know what I mean? Our health, all of that. So we could be talking about food, all of that. Everything is revolving around wealth, basically, that you're talking about. So
Yeah, absolutely.
That was just a eye opener for me, just to understand more fully the definition of revolutionary white black wealth builders. So hopefully, I ain't gonna say hopefully, I'm sure that everybody watching got it, and we look forward to more conversations about this and expounding on different things that we need to do to help strengthen our people.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
what it's about.
Yep, and so what something that I wanted to ask you, good brother, are we ready right now to transition into kind of making sure that the listeners and the people know how we can serve them and growing their businesses through advertising?
Absolutely. You can go to 7mileradio.com/Black Wealth, and you can fill out the form specifically if you want to sponsor this show. See old episodes, contact us, like I said, for sponsorship, see old clips and things like that. Donate to the show, purchase merchandise in the future. We'll have a specific small web store on the website for this podcast. So all of the information that you want to know about this show is at 7mileradio.com/Black Wealth. So that's how you will get in contact with us about the sponsorship. So any businesses out there for 30-second commercials or any kind of advertisements, promotion that you want to get in on the platform, contact me or Emmett, and we'll get you the information that you need.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And so just remember, 7 Mile Radio and all of its media reach and platforms reaches over 100,000 listeners, viewers, and followers. So this is a great place to advertise your business, whether it be a mention, whether it be a full ad, or whether it be to come into the show, Revolutionary Wealth Builders, and kind of discuss what you do to serve the community in a benevolent way that actually puts you in a position to grow a business that serves our people. So just make sure that you keep us in mind when you're thinking about growing your business.
There it is.
Yep.
So until next week, we good. You're all right. This is the end of the show. You wanna end it with any other things?
No. I got one more thing that I want to talk about.
Okay.
I want to transition into where we at 11:37.
Yeah, I thought you said you was gonna close it out.
No.
We keeping it going.
We closing out this segment.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, we closing out this segment. And I want to transition into what the title of the show actually is today.
Oh, right.
OZARK, a lesson in capitalism.
Right.
So if you can.
Yeah. So what was that? The image? What was this picture that we're looking at? Right.
We're looking at Jason Bateman. We're looking at Marty and Wendy Bird from the Ozarks.
Right.
You got that show up. You got that clip up for the people. All right, so for those of you who are not familiar with the Ozarks, the Ozarks is a show that came out about 2 years ago, and I want to say we're in season 4 of the Ozarks, and there's probably over the 4 seasons of the Ozarks, there's probably been maybe 30 to 40 episodes of the Ozarks. So just giving you a real quick backdrop, Marty is an accountant, and Wendy Bird is his wife, and they have 2 children. Marty begins to launder money in the early seasons of the Ozark for a cartel in Mexico. And unbeknownst to him, he ends up having to move to the Ozarks from Chicago, and where he has to continue to launder money for them, buy new businesses, and he becomes very, very wrapped up in the cartel lifestyle, having to make decisions that uproots and changes his entire family dynamic, from anywhere from committing crime to committing murder to aiding and abetting a multitude of crimes. This regular, average, middle-aged white man and his wife and children all become criminals working for a Mexican drug lord named Omar and cartel. So why is this show, The Ozarks, a lesson in capitalism? Where there's a multitude of things going on in this show that I want to bring to the attention of all of the people who discuss The Ozarks. It's trending on all social media platforms, but I wanted you to look at this show from a different perspective. Did I watch every episode of The Ozarks? Yes. Do I watch episodes of shows on different platforms? Typically, no. How did I get connected with the Ozarks? I cannot remember, but I will say I watched one episode and then I started to watch it, and I've watched every episode of the Ozarks. I am going to admit to that. But if you know me, you know that I dissect the things that I watch and use them for educational purposes. So there's a few things that I want you to recognize in the Ozarks, in which Jason Bateman, who is himself a middle-aged white man who has been moderately successful in TV, in media, in Hollywood for about 30 years now, starting from when Jason Bateman was on Growing Pains back in the late 80s, early 90s. Jason Bateman has directed multiple films. He is heavily involved in Hollywood. And so I said that to say this. Everything that Jason Bateman wrote into the Ozarks and into his character Marty was by design, and it was strategic. One of the first things I want to bring to your attention is that in the Ozarks, in over 30 to 40 episodes, there were little to no black male characters. There is one black female character, and she is a police officer who was stupid enough to get on a private airplane with a cartel drug lord and allow herself to be bagged over the head and to sit down and discuss with him a possible deal that would be done, put herself in harm's way with a newborn child at home. What black woman do you know would leave her newborn child to be bagged and gagged over the head, to put herself in danger, to never see her child again in order to do her job working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Nobody. It's not realistic. It is an unrealistic character choice, the choice of the character. And Jason Bateman wrote that into the show, in my opinion, to highlight that even the most intelligent... Do you know how intelligent you have to be a Federal Bureau agent?
Yeah.
Do you know how many tests you have to pass? Agility tests. Do you know what you have to go through to be a federal agent? What he essentially is saying is that even the smartest of black women are stupid, because what she did was she made a life decision to be loyal to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, turn her back on her family and her child. That's the first thing I want to highlight. The second thing I want to highlight is her child is newborn, but there is no father in the picture whatsoever. And when I say whatsoever, there is no black father in the picture. Why is that? How is the baby newborn and you just had sex with this man 17 months ago and he's nowhere to be found? Nowhere to be found. Or I'm sorry, not 17 months ago, 10 months ago, because the newborn baby, actually had the baby in her stomach in some episode. And there is no father around, no man around. So he just disappeared. Then the other interesting thing that Jason Bateman wrote into this script is that she lives with her mother, who does not have a husband either.
Who's also a single.
So you have two generations of black fathers that have failed the children already, subconsciously below the surface of the show without actually saying it. See, Jason Bateman ain't no idiot. He's been in Hollywood for 30 years. He knew exactly what he was doing when he didn't write any black characters into this show that were, significant. Any black male characters that were significant. In the country, in the world that we live in, black people make up 13% of the population. So in most things, they should represent at least 13% of the population in most things that we see. And
that depiction is unrealistic.
Exactly. And so those are some of the things I want to highlight. Something else that I wanted to highlight. Let's highlight the drug cartel kingpin and his insatiable need to launder money using Marty Byrde. We discussed while we were during the production of this show, we discussed why it's important for people who commit crime and want to launder money to understand that you actually hustling backwards when you launder money. You are spending some of your proceeds to clean money, to assimilate into capitalism, which already is dirty in and of itself in the first place. I want you to think about what I just said. You are spending 5 to 10% of the money that you've earned to clean it and to wash it, to assimilate into American capitalism, which in and of itself is dirty already. So you're dirty, cleaning money to go into another dirty arena. That's why we have to not desire the boats. We have to not desire the mansions, because that's where capitalism gets you. Capitalism gets you in your imagination of needing to be a part of what you see to be opulence in America, what you perceive to be wealth, success, and being well off. And so for me, the first thing, if you ever were going to divorce capitalism, you have to divorce the insatiable need to assimilate in having those things that capitalism produce. And if you can't do that, you can't divorce capitalism. And so to clean your money to become a part of American society in and of itself is a foolish proposition.
You've already cheated the system to acquire the wealth. So
Exactly.
it's like, and the point of doing it the way that you was doing it was to not pay taxes and not to
Exactly. So now,
invest into the government.
exactly.
And
So now
turn
you
around
want to
and
clean
do
the
it.
money, pay them taxes, pay to clean the money, and then have to explain how you were able to generate it in the first place. When if you stayed off grid, as we would call it, preppers call it staying off grid or staying under the radar, you wouldn't have to deal with that. But it is our insatiable need and desire to be a part of America's systems which create the insatiable need to have to even consider something like laundering money in the first place. That's why the OZARK's A Lesson in Capitalism discussion is very important. Because if you are able to be satisfied in the world and the life that you live in, you don't have to assimilate into living in a world where American capitalism is the soup du jour of the day, so to speak. And so some other things that I wanted to talk about as it relates to this segment, Ozark's A Lesson in Capitalism, is that you got to remember that if you watch this show and you saw Wendy Bird's father, Wendy Bird was what typically you would call white trash or a trailer park white woman. Same thing with Ruth. The same thing with Darlene. Ruth, Darlene, and Wendy all got wealthy. Why? Because essentially they were privileged. It was nothing but privilege. Think about what Wendy's father said about her. He said that she was a promiscuous slut coming up as a kid. They were poor. They didn't really have much, and they lived somewhere in rural North Carolina. She meets Marty, who goes to college and is just an average middle-class accountant. They get wealthy from him laundering money from a cartel wealth to the point where Wendy Bird builds the Bird Foundation and literally has all the politicians in Missouri in her pocket. And they own a casino now, and they own multiple businesses. And they grew all of this from slicking, stealing, pulling the wool over the eyes of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the local sheriff's department, and an entire drug cartel. So what Jason Bateman wrote into the script is that your average middle-class white man and your average poor trailer park white woman is more intelligent than everybody in the world. And that is how they get wealthy, by being smarter, slicker, and more intelligent, and being able to defraud the federal government, a cartel, and a local sheriff's department. And the last episode, they win, walk away with the money, walk away with the Bird Foundation, and walk away with a new life after taking risk after risk after risk after risk, putting over 30 people in harm's way, getting 10 people killed, and putting their family in on the doorstep of death 5 or 6 times. They make it out. So what Jason Bateman is saying when he wrote this script is, you can be white, middle class, trailer parked, and you can become wealthy in America without doing any real work, as long as you are capable of lying, stealing, cheating, and killing, and putting everybody else at risk, and you do it to the extent that you are able to come out on top. The entire fourth season is about Wendy Bird convincing other people to do things that they don't want to do. I think I can convince her. I think I can convince them. This is the world we live in. And so white America likes to convince us that their wealth, their houses, their boats, their opulence is the draw for us to chase their capitalism.
I got to go watch Ozark now. After that,
And-
I gotta see this show.
And if anybody is watching this, and they've watched the Ozarks, you know everything that I said is spot on. Let me see if I can find, I tried to open up. Let me see. I was trying to see if anybody was communicating with me on my page and see if we had any.
I got a lot of people tagging us, people in the comments watching. Quite a few people watching in here. But yeah, I definitely have to see Ozark now to further dissect, because man, we always talk about it all the time, man. How Hollywood, I guess, is in cahoots with the government, I guess, and they put out a lot of messages, a lot of subliminal situations that they really are implementing right now. The things that have happened in the past and stuff that they plan on doing in the future. Whether it be in any institution we're talking about. I've seen stories about movies about situations in schools or banks, whatever, and it's like they suggest different things that's going on, how they plot and plan and get over in society, in real life, in the movies. And I think people sometimes see it and they may recognize some of the things, but they don't feel like that it's really what's going on in real life, because it's too Hollywood. Like, this is stuff that happens on TV. It don't happen in real life.
Exactly.
So they don't believe that it's real. They don't, and within that, you're not able to, defend it. You're not able to stop any of these problems, or be proactive on, preventing any of these things from happening, because you don't believe it's real in the first place.
Absolutely. And so we have about 8 minutes worth of showtime left, and so I wanted to introduce you guys to how I'll be dissecting and providing commentary on different things that are very important to our people and to our culture, and the different topics that are trending. And I want to peel back the layers on these things so we can look at it from a different perspective. I want to use the last little bit of time that we have to kind of create a continuum of what this show will be about. Think about it from this perspective. Well, let me do this. Let's talk about some terms. Capitalism. How do I define capitalism? Capitalism, for me, is an ideological economic position that is more political than it is social or financial. It is more political. If you pull the political power and political emphasis from capitalism, capitalism becomes what we call free market enterprise. Free market enterprise, it gives people the ability to do business with one another freely and set their own prices fairly in order for people to progress in life and provide goods and services benevolently to one another. I'm not going to get into the other isms, socialism, communism, and fascism today, but we're going to do a whole show on these. I'm going to give you another definition of net worth. Your net worth is simply your assets minus your liabilities. Assets minus liabilities equals your net worth. So if your assets equal $1 million, your liabilities equal $500,000, your net worth is $500,000. And so I don't care what people have. It is important that they understand what their net worth is. How much debt do you have in relationship to your assets? Because that really determines what you can do, what type of moves you can make, and how you can move in America. That's very important. Assets. Assets are things that make you money, that appreciate in value, that you can build on to create wealth. Liabilities are things that we owe money on, or things that cause us strife, things that cause challenges for us, and things that do not allow us to progress and move forward quickly because we have to deal with them. So liabilities are a number of things, but financially they are when you owe money. A balance sheet is simply your assets and your liabilities. When you balance your balance sheet, when you are balancing it, you are making sure that you have more assets than liabilities. Everybody follow that? What other definitions are important? Let me see. Geopolitics is geo meaning earth and politics meaning politics. The politics around the world determine our economy. Russia versus Ukraine causes problems with supply chain issues and it impacts the economy. China, Cold War versus the United States, it creates supply chain shortages, such as the chip shortage, the reason why there are thousands of trucks parked in Dearborn that can't move. Geopolitics are a real thing. Understand what's going on globally. Macroeconomics is the economy, the larger economy, how it impacts our GDP, which I'll talk about in a minute. Macro and microeconomics can be our household economics. Understand how macroeconomics impact our microeconomics in our home. GDP is gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is all the goods and services sold in the United States in any given year. It's typically around $15 trillion. $15 trillion a year, our gross domestic product. PMI is the production managers index. That's where the PMI kind of determines what's hot and what's not in food, what's selling, what's making money and what's not. They kind of survey all the production managers in all of the different industries and they ask them some questions and they determine what's hot, what's not, what people are buying and things like that. The quantitative easing, that's simply printing money. The Federal Reserve is an entity that is not a federal, it is not a government agency. It is a private institution of bankers who own the right to print all the money in the United States. The Dow is the stock market. The stock market essentially is all of the companies that are traded and shared on the internet. Cryptocurrency is a platform that was created to exchange money using blockchain. A coin is a company, a cryptocurrency that has been created. A coin is created from cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency and a coin is two different things. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency essentially, but Litecoin is a coin that derives from Ethereum. And so there's a lot for us to learn there, and we're going to unpack all of that as well. A bond is essentially a treasury where you loan the United States money by buying a bond from them. You loan the United States $1 million, they give you $1 million bond. It can be a 30-year treasury, it can be a 10-year bond, it can be a 6-year treasury. A note, a 6 month or 1 year note. It can be a number of things, but essentially what a bond is you loan the United States money and then they give you a bond and say, on this date, you can cash it back in for 3% interest. I'm going to give you $1,030,000 in this amount of time. So you make $30,000 by loaning the government $1 million. That's what a bond is. And so those are some of the definitions of some things that we might talk about in the future. Asset classes are real estate, precious metals, land encompasses real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETF. A mutual fund is a hodgepodge of stocks, a collective of stocks like Pepsi, Coke, prisons, and all type of other stuff all together. And when one of them go up, it all goes up. When one goes down, it all goes down a little bit here and there. And so mutual funds protect people because it's not just one stock. It is what you're essentially hedging your bet in the stock market by having a bunch of stocks all in one basket. And when some of them go up, it all goes up together when some go down. But that's essentially what that is. An ETF is an electronic traded fund, and that's essentially a stock that you can jump in and out quickly. You can have ETFs on gold, silver, and all these things. So you can trade these things without actually owning them physically. And so those are some of the terms that we're going to discuss. And it's important for you to know them. It's important for you to start doing your own work in the area of macroeconomics so you can understand how it impacts your family. And so that concludes what I'm going to be talking about for the day. So we can wrap up. I appreciate everybody tuning in for the inaugural show of Revolutionary Wealth Builders here on 7 Mile Radio. We will be here every single Thursday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Like, share, and subscribe. Follow us over on Revolutionary Wealth Builders on YouTube. Follow 7 Mile Radio. I appreciate all you guys. Peace and love. And we will see you guys next Thursday at 11 a.m.
Remembering our angel, Brittany Nicole Dillard of the Plain and Simple podcast. Continue to watch over us. We miss you. We'll never forget you.
What's up, Bree? What's up, Bree?
Hey! Look at Mark, y'all. Oh my
Shut it up.
Happy Mother's Day to me.
Warning. You are now tuned in to 7 Mile Radio.
Production.